I mean, when I read it, I was like, oh my God. Like, I wanted to react with many, many ugly words and cry and lay down on the floor and call my mama to come and comfort me. Man, it hurt my feelings. It was nasty. Good morning. Hey guys, how are you? It's Monday morning, which means it's time for Hey Teachers. So, hey teachers, how are you? I'm Amanda. I'm from Party in the Art Room, if you don't know. On Mondays, I like to sit down and get my caffeine and sugar. I'm not a coffee drinker, and sometimes I like to put my caffeine and sugar in a fancy, cute glass, but today ain't that day. We're straight out of the bottle today. I run on Mountain Dew and albuterol. So if you've been following me, you know about my asthma situation, and I just have to have Mountain Dew in the mornings. I've tried to give it up many times, but for my entire adult life, I have enjoyed a Mountain Dew in the mornings. I do give them up from time to time and try to get off the sugar, but they just mean a lot to me. It's my thing. It's my vice. If this is my vice, then I guess it's better than some other vices. Anyway, welcome if you're new here. If you're a teacher who likes to talk about teachery things, or you're like an education supporter or a parent that wants to learn a little bit about using the arts in their classroom, like this is just all things teacher related, all things school and education related. We talk about everything from what the heck the legislature is doing with all their money instead of giving teachers several $1,000s worth of a pay raise every year to how to use arts integration in our classrooms. So if you want to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. And I feel like we talk about things that sometimes teachers can't say out loud. And today is one of those days. We're going to talk about your negative coworkers and how to deal with them. So before we get started, let me just preface this by saying, I know life is hard. It is. There's a lot of tough stuff that human beings have to deal with. I mean, it's almost all tough stuff that we have to deal with. And so I know that there are people dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of hardships, a lot of mental health issues that they can't help. I get it. And I want things to be better for you if that's you. I really do. And let us know how we can help you. We want to help. Like it matters. How you feel matters, and we care about you. And we care about the negative Nancy's. But at the same time, the rest of us have to also respond and deal with what the negative people are putting out into the universe. And so that's what this video is going to be about. How do you cope with a negative coworker at school? And I got some stories to tell. When I was writing this, I put a lot of thought into what to do. And some of it is not exactly concrete. You know, I like concrete, actionable things. Like tell me exactly what to do and I can go do it. But when you're dealing with negative people, it's not always that easy. There's no one size fits all. There's not a script you can follow every time. You have to kind of take in the strategies as a whole and apply them using some critical thinking according to how they need to be applied. The one thing that I think you can do, and I have had to do this before, so I'm gonna tell you a story about it, but walk away, just walk away. And let me tell you a story. I worked with a negative coworker who was very, very tired. She was really a really sweet person. And I liked her. I liked to be around her. Like if we were to be not at school, I liked her. Yeah, she's a good person. And she really did love her students, but she was tired and worn out and needed a break because this job is hard. And she'd been doing it for a really long time. Well, she would bring her kids to my class and she would always have something to say. I always would meet my classes at my door, and she would walk up to the door and she would say, "Oh, Miss Coolabah, so-and-so is having a bad day today. They did blah, 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 blah. Or this class just can't get it together. I hope they'll act right for you." She would say that stuff to me out loud and for where the kids could hear it. And it would make me extremely uncomfortable because I knew that the kids could hear it. And so I had to walk away. I stopped meeting that class outside the door, because I didn't want that teacher to pull me into that. Like I didn't want to be seen up in the middle of that. I didn't want to take the bait, which is number 2, by the way. I didn't want the students to see her telling me that and think that I agreed with her. I wanted the students to think that I saw good and wonderful things in them. And so I didn't want to be a part of that, so I would just walk away. And by walking away, I also just did not meet them outside the door anymore. I stood a few feet inside the door as they came in, and that kept the teacher from being able to vent, because that's really what she was doing. She was venting. She was frustrated, and she was venting to me, but she was doing it in earshot of the students. So I don't know if you've ever had a situation like that, but just walk away. And if you can't literally walk away, do what I did and put some distance between you. I knew she wasn't going to come in the room. So it was when I was meeting them outside in the hallway that she was venting to me. So I knew she wouldn't come in the room. And so I was able to just step a few feet inside the door and I could still greet the students, but I kind of put a stop to that venting session that she was having in their earshot. And if she needed to vent, I really wouldn't have minded her coming to me after school to vent, but just not in earshot of the students. I don't want that negativity brought into my classroom. So number 2 is don't take the bait. And it's similar to number 1, but it's a little bit different because when I wrote this, I was thinking about times when someone was kind of, I don't know what they were going through that day, but they like bit my head off for no reason. Or they were talking about me and I heard them. Believe it or not, I more than once, I heard some teachers that I worked with talking about me with my own 2 ears because I don't know why. I don't know why people do that. I hope I have never done that to anybody, but if I have, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I promise. Because I'm trying to be a better person, trying to get right. I'm always on that path. But anyway, I have heard some teachers talking really negatively about me or complaining because they didn't want to have to do something related to the arts. One time, a teacher sent an email about me to our principals, and it was like, we were supposed to be doing something related to the arts, and the whole entire school was supposed to be doing it, and the principals were on board. But they said they were on board, and since I was the arts leader there, it kind of was on me to sort of lead it, I guess is the right word. Well, this teacher emailed the principals, and there was about a paragraph worth of negative things that she had to say about me. It wasn't personal, it's that she didn't want to do it. And so she was having negative things to say about me. Well, the principal accidentally forwarded it to me. Yep. And I read it. When I read it, I was like, oh my God. Like, I wanted to react with many, many ugly words and cry and lay down on the floor and call my mama to come and comfort me. Man, it hurt my feelings. It was nasty. I didn't respond. I didn't take the bait. I had to fight myself because I really wanted to respond immediately with a bunch of things to say, but I didn't. I didn't take the bait then. I did not react immediately. And not only that, but I did not respond to any of the negativity. I just responded as just reminding, like, this is what we agreed to. So didn't take the bait. Be careful with that. You can really diffuse a situation like that in the same way you might diffuse one with a student who's doing extra stuff they shouldn't be doing. Just remain calm and try to neutralize it. Just think of it like that. The third one is just lead by example. One of the most effective ways to foster a positive work environment is to lead by example. And we know that, and we've been told that time and time again, and we've seen it work time and time again. We know this. So we have to, but it takes effort. Like we can't just automatically, we don't automatically default to positivity usually. So it takes work. We want to be respectful. Even if other people are not in our environment are not respectful, we want to be the one that's respectful. We want to help others when we can. Look at your work at school as a team effort, which is how we should be looking at it. It scares me when we start introducing competition amongst teachers, because if one teacher's winning and her students are winning, if one teacher's if we have a winning teacher, that means we got to have somebody that's losing, and we shouldn't have any students who are losing in our education system. So that's why I think it's so important to always be stressing teamwork and look at it as a team effort. Like, so-and-so students across the hall are just as important as my students. How can I be helpful? How can I offer thoughtful feedback? How can I get feedback from them? It's just a way to be much more likely to impact your coworkers and influence them to be positive themselves. And let's be real, if you look at this like a team effort, if you truly accept it and believe it deep down to your core that all the students matter and that all the students should reap the full benefits of their education, you're going to be much more likely to collaborate. And when we collaborate, and you won't see the other teachers as competition, you're not going to be upset when you see one teacher whose test scores were a little higher than yours, you're going to say, help me, tell me what you did. And they're going to treat you that way. They're going to say, you're doing this really great arts integration lesson, and I see your students are learning so much. Tell me what you're doing. Help me do it too. That brings the positivity. But hoarding information, like how you got your test scores so high on that one specific standard, like whatever it was that you taught to get those test scores up, hoarding that information because you're competing with the other teachers, that's negative. That breeds negativity like nobody's business, like rabbits. So don't do that. Lead by example. Number 4 is, I alluded to this a little bit, but provide solutions. If you're working along a coworker who is bringing you down or bringing others down because they always find fault with what everybody's trying to do, they're always devil's advocate. You know, guys, it's okay to be devil's advocate when it's appropriate. We need that counter to our thinking almost all the time. Like, we need people to push us, but we do not need that people to be devil's advocates just for the sake of being devil's advocates. That's not productive. Those are two separate things. I'm talking about when people are devil's advocates when they're just being little turds and want to have something negative to say about every single thing that comes up. They don't like, every single student. Here's an example. We had this one student that we were thinking about letting be the lead in a program. And this was a coveted part. Like, we did this same program every year and it was so cool. It was super cool. It was something that packed the house, and we would do multiple performances of it and it would pack the house. Well, there was always discussion amongst the teachers who were putting on the production of who would get that lead part. And this one year we had this student in mind for this lead part who would not necessarily have been the student you would have thought of first. The student was getting into trouble in his regular classroom pretty often. I don't know, I don't want to speculate on what was going on there, but he wasn't getting in trouble anywhere else. He wasn't getting in trouble in any of our classes, so I don't know what was going on there. But anyway, we fought really hard. I mean, it was our decision anyway, and it was ultimately the production person's decision on who got this part, but we fought for him because his classroom teacher did not think he deserved that part because he was too difficult for her in her classroom and he didn't deserve it. Okay, well, first of all, it's not your play. It's not your production. Second, doesn't have how he acts for you has nothing to do with how he acts for the rest of his teachers. We're not gonna, but I think in a lot of ways, this teacher did not realize how she was coming across and how she was behaving, but she's really adamant about not letting the student have this part. Anyway, what happened in the long run was we gave him the part, but we said to the teacher, look, let him have this. This is an outlet for him, and he really, really wants to do it. And see if it don't help his behavior. Like, show your support to him and see if it helps. And guess what? It did help. It helped tremendously. We showed up with a solution to her complaint. And since we had a solution, it could offer like a different perspective. And we talked to her like respectfully, like she was one of our colleagues, instead of talking down to her like she was wrong. She got on board with it and everything worked out. Believe it or not, it was a pleasant thing from then on out. Now, we could have just ignored the problem and she would have been like, if we had ignored the problem rather than going to her with a solution, she would have been angry with us because we knew she didn't want that student to have that part because of the way he acted for her and was making her teaching job harder. She would have been really angry with us. That's what I mean by providing solutions. And again, let me say these, I'm not talking about bad teachers. I think I'm talking about teachers that are having a rough time. And this teacher, she's not a bad teacher. She's a good person. She was having a rough year. We all understand that. I just want to make sure this is clear. I'm not saying our negative coworkers are negative, bad human beings. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're working with people who are dealing with a lot. And what they put out into the universe can affect everybody. And we have to respond to them. These are ways we can respond to them. And in the long run, help them. Number 5 is set healthy boundaries. And let me be honest with you about this. Sometimes I get really sick of hearing about setting healthy boundaries. It's like a catch-all for the world's problems. You can't fix climate change by setting healthy boundaries. You can't feed your family on a minimum wage job. Setting healthy boundaries and self-care does not fix those problems. Like something else has to be done. So I get a little bit sick and tired of hearing like set boundaries and self-care. And I especially get tired of hearing it in like when people tell you that you need to do that as a teacher, because it just doesn't fix the problems. If you, it's like a fluffy way of avoiding. It's avoidance. That's right. It's exactly what it is. It's avoidance, and it gives people permission to ignore you and your situations and your concerns, and it gives people a fluffy way of just getting. It's an out. It's an avoidance. So when I say set healthy boundaries, I want you to know I get all of that. Setting, but we still actually have to set healthy boundaries. So dealing with these negative people, especially gosh, when it's because I'm about to tell you a story, but especially when it's your like superior, like your lead teacher or your principal or some superintendent or whoever. I mean, it can be really hard to set healthy boundaries when those people are negative because they're in charge of your job and your livelihood. But just keep these things in mind and try to keep boundaries around. These are real specific rules that you can follow for setting boundaries. This is not fluffy stuff. These are like specific things. If you set these expectations for yourself, it'll make things better. So there's 4 of them. The first one is absolutely no gossiping. I don't care if the 2 teachers down the hall have started dating and one of them's married and you find out about it. Unless they're doing something inappropriate at the school campus, it's none of your business. Don't gossip. I don't care. No gossiping. No gossiping means no gossiping. Number 2, give sincere compliments only. Don't be the person that runs around saying you like everything when you don't really like everything. I know that the people in my life and my students know I don't give fake compliments. I do not. If I tell you you did a good job or something is great, I mean it. And I know that people know that about me because I follow this rule. Give sincere compliments only. And by sincere, be specific. Don't just say, I like your handwriting. I like that I can read your handwriting because you kept it spaced out evenly. I was just trying to pull something off the top of my head, but be specific and sincere and make that a rule. Strictly, this one is the hard one, and I feel like almost like a jerk for even saying it, but we got to do it. We got to do it. I've talked about this before, but strictly use your work time for work. That means don't bring your special pet projects to school or your hobby stuff that you're doing. And let me tell you an example. I was quite regularly, I could every year when it came time for teachers' kids to be doing like reading fair projects, I would have teachers ask me to help them with those boards. Their kids would be nowhere around. It would be them and trying to get it done. And they would want me to help them. Well, as a rule, I wouldn't do that because I felt like the kids needed to be doing it because that's like, isn't that part of the requirements that the kids do it? But anyway, I would always say, oh, I can't help you, or I think the student needs to do it. But I would see these people bringing this stuff to school and working on it like during their planning period. Mm-mm, mm-mm. That's personal. Leave it at home. When you're at work, do work so that you don't have to bring your work home. Focus on work while you're at work. It'll also keep you from gossiping. If you're focused on your job, you won't be running around gossiping. But number 4 here about setting boundaries, let me back up. I know it's hard to do work at work and home at home. I only teach part-time now, and I still pack a bag and take it home with me every single day, even on days when I don't have to go to school the next day. I can't break that habit. So I'm telling you that because I know it's super duper hard, but you got to do it. Number 4, spend time away from work on rest and leisure and self-improvement and doing things that make you happy. I know it's hard, but do it. I have said this. The expectations have been set that teachers are just going to work for free and they will do whatever it takes to get the job done, no matter if they have to work 14 hours a day or they have to take stuff home and work until 10 o'clock every night, which I have done that. We shouldn't be doing that. And it took me a few years of teaching to realize nobody can take that time back for me. The people you work for are not going to say, oh, don't do that at home. I'm going to give you time tomorrow to do it. They're not going to say that. They're going to let you take it home and do it. Because that makes things better for them. You're going to have to be the one that says, I will not be doing this at home. Nobody can give you that time back but you. You can take it back. If more teachers would do this on a mass scale, y'all would listen to me. People who make the rules and the laws would realize this whole education system is built on the backs of teachers working for free, and it's going to fail if we don't do something differently. That's the big picture. I've told y'all before, I'm a big picture thinker. The big picture is we need to let people see that we can't do this. But on a macro or a micro scale, like at the personal level, you can take your time back. You're the only one that can. And finally, just communicate effectively. Again, it's hard because sometimes it takes like a lot of energy to have that courage built up to say or do what needs to be done. But if you're dealing with somebody who has a negative attitude constantly and you can't walk away from them and your boundaries are not helping and you've tried to be a good example and give them some solutions to some of the things they complain about and none of that's working, all you can do is just be an open line of communication. Now you might be tempted, like if everything else you've tried and it's still not getting better, you might be tempted to just be like, shut up and leave me alone, or bite their head off about something else, or just explode because you've been holding it in. But don't do that. You gotta do whatever it takes so that you don't do that. Be a communicator. Tell them like, okay, I appreciate that you need to vent, but there are some things that you and I, or you in particular, could be doing to change some of these situations, and I need to see that you're trying so that I can continue to be a support system for you. Otherwise, I'm getting really beat down and sad, and the fact that you're so unhappy is making me sad too. Talk to your people. Be a good communicator. Listening is definitely part of communicating. Words, don't shut them down. Like don't be a bully, don't be a butthole and do something rude and ugly because you're just fed up to hear. But tell them how you feel. Communicate and tell them, you're making me sad, you're stressing me out, man. Communicate. And guys, school is tough enough. All of the stuff you have to do at school is hard enough without having to deal with somebody else's negativity. That's why I want to try to give you some tools to deal with it and to respond to it, but also like I wanted it to be realistic and practical, and I wanted you to see that like I've been in some situations where I've used these actual suggestions. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you don't work in an environment where there's a bunch of mean girls, but if you do, try some of these things out. And like I said, it's not like a one size fits all kind of scripted thing. It's, you have to like use your best judgment on when and where to apply this stuff, but hopefully it'll help you. And I know it's tough. Hang in there though. Hang in there. We need you to hang in there, and let me know if you need anything. I'm here for you, and I would love to hear if you have any other ideas down in the comments. Like maybe I'm completely wrong about all this. It's worked for me, but there may be some things I missed, or like you may be like, that suggestion will never work for me, because I would love to share. Let me know. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye, guys. Thank you.